Bottom line is we are looking at a revolutionary technology, far more consequential than anything that we've ever seen in the history of humanity. We are not prepared to deal with it, but what happens to the millions of workers who lose their jobs? If we don't have work, what do we do with our lives? You tell me, but I am not seeing any serious discussion about this.
All right. The U.S. Senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. I could go into your many, many accolades and bona fides. What I like here is the amendment king for passing more amendments than any other House member. And between House and Senate, you're going on 35 combined years. Impressive. Thank you, Bernie Sanders, for spending some time with us today.
My pleasure.
All right, let's get to some newsy stuff that you're working on. You got two big things. Let's talk first about the data centers and AI, which is more of I guess, a metaphysical question and existential question. We have a huge, economic push for AI, roiling markets as we speak. NVIDIA had blockbuster earnings and destroyed the market for the last couple of days. AI, as goes AI, so shall go America. AI is fueled by data centers. They take up a lot of resources, water, energy. You've been very vocal about this. Let's get into it. What are you trying to push for AI and data centers?
First of all, I think the United States Congress and the American people really do not have a clue of the enormity of what we are dealing with. There are some very smart people who are saying that AI and robotics will have an impact on our society 100 times of what the Industrial Revolution did. Right? So the Industrial Revolution took us from an agricultural society to an industrial society, massive job change and all that stuff. What's happening now is going to happen in a much more rapid way and much more significant way. It's going to impact a lot more people a lot quicker. And I think what I have been trying to raise a flag about is we don't have any clue and no preparation or no really serious discussion about where we want to go. So the first point to be made is, who is pushing this revolution? People here in Burlington, Vermont, sitting around saying, well, I think we need to do this or that, or in Oakland, California. No. This revolution, technological, unprecedented revolution, is being pushed by a very small number of the wealthiest people on the planet, okay? We're talking about Elon Musk. We're talking about Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, Peter Thiel. Literally a handful of people who have made, as you've just indicated, unprecedented investments in AI and in data centers. Never before have we seen this kind of investment in terms of percentage of our GDP. Okay? All right, so the very simple question to ask ourselves, if we are looking at the most consequential reordering of society in the history of humanity, and if we're looking at the richest guys in the world pushing it, what are their goals? Not a good question?
Pretty good.
All right. If we got a scientist working, trying to come up with a drug to help us deal with Alzheimer's or heart disease, I know what they're trying to do, right? Trying to cure a disease. What are these guys trying to do? Are they trying to improve life for ordinary people? If that's the case, that's great. Are they going to improve the standard of living? Are they going to give us strengthen our democracy? What are their goals? And I don't think I will shock anybody to tell you that for people like Musk and Bezos, their goal is that despite the fact that they now have incredible wealth and incredible power, they want even more. And they will, if left, if we leave them in the direction of where they're going right now, that is exactly what will happen. They'll become even more wealthy and more powerful. So I think the first thing we have to do is say, okay, does AI have and robotics have positive attributes? Of course they do. in terms of healthcare, in terms of a number of areas. But the goal of this technology has got to work to improve the lives of ordinary people, not just make the very, very rich richer. So that is point number one. All right. Has that discussion even begun in the United States Congress? No. I could tell you, as a U.S. Senator, it has not. And we're trying to push that right now. Number two, short term, what will AI and robotics do to the economy? Well, nobody, to be honest with you, nobody knows for sure. But there are some people who are suggesting, and no one knows exactly when, this year, next year, but they are coming up with an AI that, according to some very smart people, will be able to do almost every task better than a human being can.
That's the definition of AI, is all human endeavor done by machines.
Right. Better than you can do it, better than I can do it. And we're beginning to see, people like Bezos have the goal of completely automating Amazon warehouses. I think the goal is, they've gotten rid of hundreds of thousands of jobs. They want to basically put robots in there completely. We are seeing now that for entry-level jobs, for young college graduates, increasingly difficult for them to get it. There are people who are saying that if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, many of those jobs in the legal profession, the accounting profession, will not be there in, nobody knows, a few years.
Truck driving.
I was, out in San Francisco a week ago and was in a Waymo, which is a driverless car. And I don't know, but they were certainly not uncommon on the streets of San Francisco. I don't know, it's 3%, 5%, and that number will only go up, everything being equal. In Texas now, you have these very large trucks, driverless trucks on the car. We have many, many, many hundreds of thousands of truck drivers in this country. God knows how many Uber drivers, cab drivers that we have. All of those jobs are under threat. So while nobody can tell you for sure, a lot of the people I talk to are thinking that there will be sweeping changes. And the reason is obvious. You can buy a robot for $20,000, $30,000 a year to work 24 hours a day, doesn't get sick, doesn't need vacation time, doesn't get time and a half. That's a pretty good deal if you own a factory or warehouse, right? That's an enormous job saving. And that's what these guys are doing, going to make it easier for companies to run businesses. What do I need a paraprofessional, paralegal person when I have AI there? So this will make companies far more profitable, and certainly the manufacturers of the technology very profitable, very profitable. But what happens to the millions of workers who lose their jobs? And the point is, some people are saying, well, we've always had this transition. Yeah, the horse and buggy driver lost his job, but got a job at a factory. The problem this time around is that when people lose their jobs, we're not quite sure what jobs there will be for them to fall into. All right. So economically, this is a huge issue.
Yeah, I think, to go back to you saying this is the biggest thing since the Industrial Revolution, Smith and Ricardo came out in the Industrial Revolution saying, this is, everyone's moving from the country to the cities, horizontal to vertical production. But the coal miners will turn into steel workers and
right.
et cetera. And, they die off, and then the market regulates itself. And then Marxism started as a sort of an apologia of saying, well, hold on a second, can't this be a bit more humane? AI being all things equal with the Industrial Revolution, you're going to have greater displacement of workers, right? With no, when I say displacement, there is no replacement in displacement, which is why there's this universal basic income or basic wage idea. And I remember talking to Larry Page about this when, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, he was already there because he figured, okay, AI is going to happen. It is going to take over. There's no way of stopping the Industrial Revolution. Therefore, we better figure out how to pay people and make them happy and all this. I talked to Yang about this, that people are already taking it as a given. Whereas you're saying, hey, we haven't even begun the discussion yet.
Let me, I mean, Elon Musk, who I don't like and disagree with on everything, it's not a dumb guy. And he says that work will become optional, that AI and robots will do everything that you need. Well, if AI and robots do everything and work is optional, how do you survive? Oh, you're going to get a check. Really? But there is no government because you're not paying any taxes, right? What happens to Social Security? What happens to Medicare and Medicaid? And who's going to determine the check that you get? Really? How much are you going to get? How much am I going to get? And take it a deep step. I mean, this is so revolutionary. Work, you're at work right now. I am at work. Today, God knows, over 100 million Americans are at work. It's an important part of their lives. Deep down, we all want to contribute, whether we're a janitor or a brain surgeon, to our community, right? You take it for granted, but you meet people at work. It's part of your life. Oh, guess what? In X number of years, you don't have to work. What are you going to do? You're going to sit around watching Elon Musk videos? Is that the meaning of life? Have we even begun to have that serious discussion? So if somebody tells me that right now, some guy who's doing a job with a lot of danger or drudgery, and we can shorten that work week, is that a bad thing? No, it's a great thing. How does that person benefit from it right now? So again, bottom line is we're looking at a revolutionary technology, far more consequential than anything that we've ever seen in the history of humanity. We are not prepared to deal with it. If we don't have work, what do we do with our lives? If we're not paying taxes because we don't have jobs, how does that impact government services? Who makes these determinations? You tell me, but I am not seeing any serious discussion about this.
Which leads us to the second question. You look at the Industrial Revolution, it started, the aristocracy before that, but Industrial Revolution started this whole class, the owners versus the workers. And so now we have massive, income discrepancy today. You have the trillionaires on one side, and then you have people eating mud on the other side, and it's, ne'er the twain shall meet. With the intro of quantum computing, which is going to sort of, make all other computing obsolete, and then you have AI coming along to take jobs, you have even further, discrepancy between lifestyle, between wealth, between all of these things, which leads us to the sort of the rise of the billionaire class, who you've referenced a bunch of times. And what I find funny, again, weird in America, is taxation reform is supported by the people that it would help. No taxation reform is supported by the people who would help, i.e., middle class people, working class people, et cetera. Well, I will become rich and then I don't want to be taxed. So you're proposing some tax reforms on billionaire classes. What are those reforms?
Well, thanks for asking. And let's back it up a little bit. Today we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of the United States. We've all, as kids, we studied the Gilded Age, remember? The Carnegies and all these guys, very rich, Rockefellers. It is much more significant today. All right, so let me bore your viewers with a few statistics. I always get criticized for doing it, but every now and then you got to know the facts. All right, so today in America, you're looking at the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 93%. Got that?
Wow.
Yeah. You're also looking at one man, whose name is Elon Musk, owning more wealth than the bottom 53% of American households. Let me repeat it. One man owns more wealth than the bottom 53% of American households. Now, you would think that the country would be going nuts when they hear that, right? Oh my God, what kind of economy do we have? Trump's talking about a booming economy. Well, he's right. Musk is making hundreds of billions of dollars more since Trump became president. But what is happening while the very, very richest people are becoming phenomenally, unbelievably richer? What's going on for the ordinary people? Right now, again, quite unbelievably, when Europeans come over, they drop by my office and we chat. I say, well, tell me, you're from France, you're from UK, wherever you, what percentage of the American people do you think are living paycheck to paycheck? And they usually say, well, maybe 20%, 25%. The answer is 60%, 60. All right. That means people are struggling to put food on the table, to pay their escalating healthcare costs. Housing is off the roof. Send your kid to college, forget about it. Childcare, very expensive, etc. So the richest people today have enormous amounts of wealth. Ordinary Americans are struggling to buy the basic necessities of life. But when you talk about what's going on in America today, it is not just income and wealth inequality. It's concentration of ownership in the economy. You got in every instance, fewer and fewer large corporations, certainly in AI, we're talking about 4 or 5 major corporations controlling that industry. But in every industry, fewer and fewer large corporations, Wall Street playing an enormously important role. But it is not just income and wealth inequality and concentration of ownership. Increasingly, you're seeing who owns the media, who owns Twitter, all right, Elon Musk, who owns Meta, which is Instagram and Facebook. Oh, it's our friend Mr. Zuckerberg. Who owns TikTok? Well, increasingly, it's Larry Ellison, who also owns recently CBS and may own more in the future. Who owns the Washington Post and Twitch? Oh, it's Jeff Bezos. So these same guys control to a large degree, not completely, the media. And we don't discuss issues like income and wealth inequality. Am I missing something though? You're a media guy. Do you hear much discussion about it?
It's funny. I take it on the nose or take it on the chin, with what happened to Vice. But the interesting thing, they're looking at who left the porthole open of the Titanic rather than we ran into the monopolies, the iceberg, which, by the way, not only destroyed new media, which we were a part of, it destroyed and consolidated old legacy media as well, which we've seen today. And it now doesn't exist anymore. And no one said boo. So let's, and I just want to make a caveat. I like Elon Musk as a person, and I think he's done incredible things scientifically and in business. But I think you can also tell the truth and say, look, there is income inequality and there is discrepancies in taxation. And the stats that you said, 60% of the people are living paycheck to paycheck. If AI is going to be a huge revolution, we either have to start working towards figuring out, how to make a soft landing for that revolution, or we're all screwed. The other thing is I'm an environmentalist, and what we don't talk about are the environmental costs. Two things used to be, big questions. One was the environment was, on everybody's lips, and income inequality. Both seem to have gone the way of the wayside, except for our brilliant man from Vermont here. So maybe talk about the environmental costs and data centers and what are your plans there?
Well, I think your point is well taken. Since Trump has been president, Trump has told us that climate change is a hoax created in China. Well, that is insane. That's obviously not true. Every year is becoming warmer and warmer. We are withdrawing, the United States is withdrawing from international agreements. Trump is telling us that we need to build more, become more dependent on coal, cut back very significantly on sustainable energy projects. I myself passed the bill, $7 billion bill, made it easier for working class people to put solar up on their rooftops. They are trying to kill that. We're in court right now. And that's just one of many projects. So you got climate change, turning our back on that reality, becoming more dependent on fossil fuel, going back to Venezuela, etc., more oil, more coal, rather than moving to sustainable energy. And in terms of the environmental impacts of data centers, again, it's no secret. And you're seeing rebellions taking place all over the country. People are in opposition to the construction of these data centers. They require an unbelievable amount of electricity. Somebody was telling me, a senator, from a red state was telling me just they're building or they want to build one. The amount of electricity is almost unimaginable that they're going to be consuming, not to mention an enormous amount of water in places where there are shortages of water. So the environmental damage in building these these data centers are extraordinary as well.
You mentioned China. The problem with a lot of these things, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, what I think about when I'm hearing you is we're going so revolutionary over here that Bernie Sanders is saying, hey, wait a minute, let's the people and the workers, you sounding more conservative because it's going, the revolutionary is going over on this side, which by the way is a compliment. But China, how about if we slow down AI, or if we have discussions with AI, or if we're worried about the energy for AI, the argument that, well, we are in a de facto Cold War with China and they're just going to go, full, as turn on all the jets on AI and we're going to fall behind because it's such a blazing fast.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
And I think let me return to AI and I'm going to get to China. All right, we talked about AI being pushed by the wealthiest people in the world. We talked about the impact it will have on our economy. I was just recently returned from California, where I had the opportunity to talk to some very, very smart people who know infinitely more about this stuff than I do. And what used to be science fiction is no longer considered science fiction, and that is they're building this plane in flight. All right. So you talk to these guys, and some of them, by the way, used to work for one of the major companies, and they got out because they were concerned.
Can we say who they are, or?
No, I can't. I don't want to say who they are. But they got out because of safety concerns. And they're saying, we don't know where this thing is going. I can tell you that a number of months ago, I had a town meeting at Georgetown University with Jeffrey Hinton. I don't know if you know who Hinton is. Hinton is a Nobel Prize winner in physics, also considered to be the godfather of AI. He's been working on AI stuff literally for decades. He is considered to be the godfather. And he says that it is only a question of time before AI becomes smarter than human beings. So you're building a plane as it is flying, and you don't kind of know where this plane is going to land. In other words, if it becomes smarter, is it out of question that there will be a day, essentially, where AI says to its controllers, i.e. human beings, hey, have a nice day, but we're no longer listening to you. We have an agenda of our own. Now, does that sound crazy? I don't know if you did.
That used to be Elon Musk's biggest concern about AI.
It was. He raised it. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, he did and others did. And it is maybe more relevant today. I think what Musk will tell you, yeah, it's real. We can't control it. Because we're in competition with China. We're in competition with each other, right? We all are racing forward, trying to develop the most intelligent AI that we can. But it is no longer science fiction to suggest that, and I talked to some very smart people who are very, very concerned about the possible reality of AI becoming independent of human control and what that will mean to humanity. Now, I know some people will think that's crazy. That's not me talking, really. That's some people who have studied this issue, are involved in this issue today. So getting back to China, yeah, you're right. There are some people, defenders of the industry. Hey, you do what Bernie Sanders says and a moratorium on data centers. You slow this up. China is going to win the Cold War, win the AI war. Well, there are people in China who share some of these concerns. And it gets back to the fact, if you're a worker out there and you're thrown out on the street, you're not really worried about China. What you're worried about, whether you're going to feed your family. So I think the answer is we have got to slow it down. We've got to sit down with China to demand that they slow it down. During the heart of the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union, who had no love for each other, managed to figure out it was probably not a good idea to blow up the world, right? People in China, leadership are not stupid. And I think it's important for us to work very closely with them to try to make sure that AI is developed in a way that is safe and not out of human control.
So the argument for AI sort of unregulated, let's go as fast as we can, is China, which you've just brought up. What about the billionaires tax you propose and the fact that they'll just leave? You know, the flight from California to Texas or Florida or Nevada. You know, there's a lot of the money leaving. You know, people cite France, when they had the socialist government in France, they put a lot more taxation in people.
All right, let's talk about that for a sec. Now, what they're trying to do in California, and I'm going to try to do nationally, we're going to introduce a wealth tax. We're saying what they're saying in California are two things. Number one, the richest people in California are getting much richer, and Trump gave them a very significant tax break, right? $1 trillion tax break over a 10-year period for the top 1%. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in order to pay for that tax break, Trump and his friends threw 15 million people off the health care they had through massive cuts in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. So what they're saying in California is, look, we want a one-time tax on billionaires, and they got 4 out of the 6 wealthiest people in the country living in California. They say, look, guys, pay a little bit more so that people who have lost their health insurance, children, others, will be able to stay alive.
California's ultra-rich are threatening to leave the state over a proposed billionaire tax. Supporters say they're pushing for it to cover the Trump administration's massive cuts to low-income health care.
What the billionaires are saying is, they're not saying, okay, we think it's more important for us to have huge amounts of money than it is for children to have health care. Well, you know what? I think the people of California and the American people say, hey, you know what? That ain't right. You're worth hundreds of billions of dollars. You pay a few $1 billion more in taxes so kids can have health care. Really? Is that your problem? But what these guys are doing, which upsets me very much, is they're not having that debate. You want to have a debate on a billionaire's tax? Should they pay more? What do you think?
But I think if you went to the billionaires, and I know some of them, and said, hey, we want to take some more money from you guys and make it into healthcare, I would say the majority would say yes, if they could say that the healthcare went to little kids and the healthcare went to people who, et cetera, et cetera. I think the problem is things get mismanaged and taken by,
All right, but then the answer is, you know what? Medicaid ain't perfect. Medicare is not perfect. You know what? It works. It does provide healthcare for tens and tens of millions of people. So to sit here and say, well, I would give money to make sure the kids have healthcare, except I don't think it's sufficiently run. That's not really.
I think if you went and asked them, 9 out of 10 of them, they'd probably say yes. Maybe 6 out of 10.
All right. But the point is, I don't have to ask them. This is not a personal thing. We live in a society. We have responsibilities to each other. All right. We are the richest country in the history of the world. Tens of thousands of people should not die every year because they can't get to a doctor on time, which is the case. So it's not a question of begging billionaires. But what bothers me, this is what they're doing right now. Rather than having that debate about whether billionaires should pay a few billion more in tax when they're worth a couple of $100 billion and children get health care, that's not the debate they want to have. What they are saying is, this is what they're saying. You want us to pay more in taxes. Well, guess what, guys in California? We got the power. No way you can touch us. And if you, by the way, win that referendum, you know what we're going to do? We're going to throw you out of work. We're going to leave California. Nothing you can do. We have not only the wealth, we have the power. It's a lose-lose situation for you. Either your kids don't get health care, that's lose, or you stand out to us, you're going to lose your job. I hate that, because that is just brute power that they are exercising on people. The idea that you will punish people because of a democratic referendum that says they should pay more in taxes is, to me, one manifestation of these guys seeing themselves as an elite with a divine right to rule. And I don't accept that. Either you're part of society or you're not. And just because you're rich and you're powerful, you don't punish people standing up and voting to ask you to pay more in taxes.
And so the way of getting around the, voting with their feet and leaving California is to make a federal.
Yeah, I think that's common sense. when you have this kind of massive income and wealth inequality. And by the way, in terms of taxes, some of these corporations are paying literally zero in federal taxes. Billionaires pay an effective tax rate lower than a truck driver. They've manipulated the tax system effectively, so they pay very little in taxes. We got to deal with that issue, and that's why I'm going to introduce a tax on wealth.
And how did we get here? How did we get to? I know that you're working, or with Lawrence Lessig about super PACs and campaign finance, and there's a very important law that's we're trying to sort of rescind or amend or what have you. Maybe you could talk for 2 seconds about that. But how did we get here where a billionaires pay zero and
And the answer is you have a corrupt political system. I mean, everybody knows that. That's no great secret. You're laughing. Is it a secret? I mean, when Elon Musk...
but I mean, you're one of the only guys. You're one of the only guys saying this. Look, you're one of the only guys who tells the truth, which is why I just love you to bits. But you're telling the truth, and you're going out there and you're saying hard things that people need to hear.
Let me give you an example. Two examples, and this is true of both political parties. Okay, now it's the Republicans more than the Democrats. They have more billionaires. You tell me, what does it say about democracy in this country when Elon himself can put $290 million into Trump's campaign? Does that sound like you're living in a democracy? You get one vote, Elon puts $290 million. Right now, as we speak, on March 3rd, which is a few days from now, on Tuesday, a bunch of elections around the country. We're involved in some of them. What I'm seeing now are super PACs, crypto, APAC, AI, putting millions and millions of dollars into congressional races, trying to defeat candidates who stand up for the working class. Can we beat them? I don't know.
You said, does it sound like a democracy? And I always get killed for this. No, it does not sound like a democracy. It sounds like a two-party system. And in any two-party system, they're always in power, but because they go back and forth. And they're...
All right, there's a two powers. Look, the issue is money in politics, and money impacts both political parties. Okay, Democratic Party, absolutely. All right, I thought Kamala Harris did not run a good campaign, and the reason was the influence of billionaire money on her. Musk puts $290 million into Trump's campaign. Well, he gets appointed to be head of Doge, etc. So getting back to what Larry Lessig and others are trying to do is we're taking on this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which basically says if you're a billionaire, you can start a super PAC, put in as much money as you want to defeat Bernie Sanders or anybody else. That ain't democracy, and we got to deal with that. That is the most important issue, I think, in terms of the future of American democracy, getting rid of Citizens United.
Let's get two questions on the macro. If you close your eyes, what is the one thing that you're most positive about for the next, let's say, 4 to 5 years? And what's the thing you most fear in the next 4 to 5 years?
What I fear the most is the growth of authoritarianism in this country. The fact that we have a president who does not believe in the rule of law or the Constitution. And that worries me very, very much. What I am optimistic about, having been all over this country and spoken to many hundreds of thousands of people, is there are great people out there. And they're not just, Democrats, they're Republicans, they're independents, people who believe in the Constitution. People want to see this country become the kind of great nation that it should become. We should be leading the world in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of how we treat our children, how we treat our elderly people, not be behind so many other countries. So I am not unoptimistic. Furthermore, when I see a lot of great young people getting involved in politics, running, often winning, Mamdani won in New York City. Very proud of that. I think he's started at nowhere, 1% in the polls, took on the entire establishment. He won. Other people are winning as well. So I am not unoptimistic that if young people get engaged, if we can develop strong grassroots movement, independent of big money, that we can transform this country in the direction that we have to.
I'm off to Iran after this. What do you think happens in Iran in the next few months?
Very worried about it. Again, the Iranian government is autocratic. They're killed thousands of people recently, was stood up. The economy is a disaster. But the United States doesn't have the right to overthrow governments willy-nilly.
I just went to Greenland with Andrew Callahan. What we saw there was weird.
We just came into the port. Arctic Special Forces coming in at the same time from the warships that are coming. Everyone says that nothing's happening, nothing to see here. Troop buildup everywhere.
Yeah, there's Arctic Special Forces. To me, that means there's something happening.
And 2 warships just arrived.
Hell yeah. Is it wartime? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It proposed maybe an Article 5 test. This sort of seemingly came out of nowhere. The Greenlandic people are confused. The people of Norway and Europe are confused. NATO's confused. What's happening?
Confused. We're all confused.
You're confused.
Look, I mean, bottom line, you have, in my view, an unstable president who is an authoritarian, who does not believe in the rule of law in this country, does not believe in international law, and thinks that he has the right to do whatever he wants globally.
Fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela.
And I think that is causing enormous consternation all over the world and instability. I think this idea of seizing Greenland or whatever is insane and has ruptured our relationship with Europe in a very profound way. But it is just one more indication of the nature of Donald Trump as president of the United States.
Well, then I probably know the answer to number 2. We just got back from Venezuela, where you want to talk about weird. The American army goes in, kidnaps the unpopular but still dead of the country, and we were walking around a few weeks later like nothing had happened. And how do we exploit the oil and the resources of Venezuela? And I just found it weird.
Well, it is weird, but the issue there, Maduro was a dictator, a terrible guy, corrupt. But you can't go around the world and tell Putin, you just can't invade Ukraine. You can't tell China, well, you know what? We don't want you to invade Taiwan. You can't tell terrorist groups, we don't want you blowing up innocent people when you decide unilaterally that you're going to take out whoever you want. Either you live in a rule of law, and God knows it is far from perfect. God knows the United Nations is not where it should be. But either we try to bring the world together to solve international conflict at the table rather than by killing people. But the precedent that Trump says is basically any country can do anything it wants in the United States. Then what are we going to say to the next country that invades another country? Oh, you can't do it? You violated international law? Really? So, again, all of that stuff, it's, Maduro is a bad guy. But either you live under the protection of international law or you don't, and I believe you do.
Man of the people, thank you for your 35 years plus of service to this country. Amazing to talk to you today. Thank you. Let's keep the dialogue open.
Let's do it.
Bernie's,
Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you.